Hey there, it's Renessa Boley Layne, and welcome to another conversation on creating your perfect work. If you follow me, then you know I am all about how do you discover design and get highly paid to do work you love. And this conversation is no different. So today's topic is really cool because we're going to talk about the power of starting something stupid.
That's right. That's
Stupid.
right.
And so the conversation is going to be really, 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 really cool. And I'm excited about it. And my hope is that it gives you a sense of urgency around creating work you love and that it lights a fire in your belly to go and do the darn thing, whatever it happens to be. So the awesome guy on the other side of the screen with me is Richie Norton. And before I get to talking about all the cool things that he's done, if you have an entrepreneurial bend, then of course this conversation is going to be all up your alley. At the same time, if you know that you'll never hang out your shingle and do something on your own, but that you want to be more innovative and have more impact and more influence within the company that you're in, this conversation is going to be really useful for you as well. So I want to make sure that you're tuning in because I think there's so many gold nuggets, no matter where you are on the perfect work spectrum. So that being said, let me tell you about this guy. So Richie is the founder of Global Consulting Circle, creating scaling business models for venture-backed startups. He is the co-founder of Product, which is that how you say it? Because I was
You
like,
said
I'm
it right. You're like one of the only
Product.
ones. It's so
Um,
good.
he helps entrepreneurs go from idea to market full service with global sourcing and end-to-end supply chain. So here's what that means. That means that if you have a product that you want to sell, they can help you go from the idea to the prototype to the manufacturing, shipping, warehousing, and fulfillment, all of that really, really quickly. He's also happily married with four amazing kids. So he's got a really, really full life. But what I really appreciate about Richie and the reason why I wanted him on this series is that his focus is on designing your life and then building your work around that. And I think that's a really, really important distinction when we start talking about creating your perfect work. So with that, Richie, I want to welcome you. I'm so glad to have you. I think you're gonna give these women and men, because we got some creeping on in, but you're going to give folks just so much to gnaw on. So I'm really, really grateful that you decided to share your time
No,
with us.
I'm honored to be here. I wish my mom was listening. She'd be so proud of me.
That's
You said
right.
so many nice things about me here.
Look at who I've become, Mama. Look at who I've become. So I want to open with the more obvious question because obviously this interview series is about creating your perfect work.
Mhm.
And to me, that's succeeding in the career business that you know that you know that you know that you were meant to do. And perfect is not perfectionism. It doesn't mean that it's not without risk and it's not without challenge. It doesn't mean that you don't have relationship issues and customer issues and all that kind of stuff, right? But it's this knowledge that, man, this is where I'm meant to contribute. It lights me up. This is legacy work. And perfect work can evolve, it shifts over time. But for you, because you've done a lot in a lot of different spaces, how do you know that the work that you're doing now is aligned to your perfect work?
That's a great question, and I'm a fan of thinking about perfection. People say practice makes perfect, and maybe not. I like to say like proliferation makes perfect. Like
Mhm.
the more prolific we are, the more we actually put into practice, not just practice, we put into practice, the more things we do, the more opportunities we have to actually do it and learn, and grow.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as like what I'm doing, and I can give some backstory, but
Yep.
right now, the way I think about work, I literally think, can I do it from my cell phone? And I'll tell you, that's my constraint.
Hmm.
And someone who heard the bio you shared there might say, how could you do any of that stuff from your cell phone? That's the point.
Hmm.
I want to be able to have a lifestyle where I can be with my family, travel whenever I want, go wherever I want, do whatever I want, with the constraint of my cell phone, even though that's still a tether.
Hmm.
But with that, most of our lives revolve around where we live and what we're doing, which is
Hmm.
work.
Yep.
And so if I can do the work that I really want to do without sacrificing the reason I'm working,
Mm.
then we're good. So when you first think about it, you think that can't be possible. That's hard. But then I stop and try and leave like an open space for creativity. I try to think, but what if it were possible? What would that look like? You know, and then go from there. Um, you know, so you mentioned I have 4 sons. My youngest son, as you know, passed away. He caught pertussis or whooping cough as a baby, and when that happened, it completely changed our lives and the way we thought about the world and about how we use our time.
Mm-hmm.
And so now when I think about time and I think about work, as far as making it perfect, while it might be messy and it might be hard,
Mm-hmm.
my goal is for it to create more time and opportunities as opposed to taking time, and just wasting opportunities.
Interesting. No, I love that you say it that way. Do the work that I want to do without sacrificing the reason why I'm working. And there are a lot of women that are listening in, like they're at a place where they want to redesign what work looks like for them. And redesigning work isn't just about the role itself. It's about how much does this take from what really matters to me? How much am I able to contribute to what really matters to me? And I think for a lot of people, it's challenging to even be honest about what really does matter to me. Like, is it the money? Because sometimes it's the money that I think, well, once I have the money, then I get to do all of these other things. So the money becomes the thing that's the most valuable. But we're going to talk about it a little bit because in your book, The Power of Starting Something Stupid, you talk a lot about your value and deferring and regrets and all those kinds. So we'll get into that. But so I'll tease that a little bit. But I remember I read in your book that there was a time when you were successful and you were making good money, but you weren't doing what probably you could consider your perfect work, and you ended up making some different decisions. So kind of give us some context around that. What were you doing at the time? What was the tipping point for you? Because you made a decision and you shifted. So kind of give us that backstory around that, because I know there's a lot of people that are at similar places in their own journeys.
Yeah, I love that. So we all get really busy, doing the work that we do. And I'm one of those people as well. I mentioned my son passed away, but right before that, just a couple years earlier, my brother-in-law, 21, passed away in his sleep. He just didn't wake up. And when that happened, we always think that we're going to have until, at least in the States, we feel like, hey, one day I'm going to retire. One day I'm going to be 65. And so we work towards this carrot, but it's a hard thing because when your brother-in-law passes away so young, you go, I might not make it there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he passed away. My son passed away. It feels like just too many things happen. We had 3 foster kids for 2 years. We were going to adopt them. They ended up, that didn't work out. That was hard on us. My son got hit by a car. My wife had a stroke and lost her memory. Like I'm telling you these things like in a row, and I'm like, does God hate me? Like, what is happening right now? But the temptation is to bury all that in your work.
Yeah.
Plus, when we're all living month to month and trying to figure it out, we have to go to work.
Yeah.
We have to. It's not like a choice, And then at the same time, it is. Because if we at some point, you have to decide, is this the work I'm going to continue to do forever?
Mm-hmm.
And if not, if this isn't the lifestyle and the work I want to do, when am I going to change? Mm-hmm. So it was through these tragedies that I started rethinking work, how to do it. And even when it's hard, having a side hustle or thinking differently or trying to start something new, the fact that you're open to doing something is the beginning.
Yeah.
Now, to answer your question, though, when I wrote The Power of Starting Something Stupid, and a side note, stupid's the new smart, right? Like the idea is that your stupid ideas can be your best ideas. And like the coolest, greatest things a lot of people have done came from a so-called stupid idea that they thought wasn't for them, or they couldn't do it, or it was crazy, or people thought they were an idiot, whatever. Okay. Well, I did like over 300 different interviews with people who were in retirement or approaching retirement, and asked them, well, what made you feel like you were successful or not successful in the things you want to do in your dreams, right? Because they're here on the other side of the rainbow now, right? Like, and they would say something like this. They'd say, I thought I needed more time, more education, more experience, and more money. And so I waited, only to find out that when I finally got here, I still need more time, more education, more experience, and more money. And when I heard that, I realized that some of the most successful people started where they were with what they had, leveraging existing resources, being creative. And if they failed, at least they didn't wait 40 years to figure that out.
Yep.
That's hard.
Yep.
And then they learned from what they were doing and moved forward. So that's the idea, is like, whoever's listening to this, I don't know your situation. I can't even understand. We're not, you and I can see each other here, but you don't know my situation. I don't know yours. But at the end of the day, I know there's something pressing on your mind. I know there's something that won't go away. I know there's something that you're pushing off because you don't want to do it. Couldn't that be the stupid idea that's the smartest thing that you could do?
Yeah.
Maybe. And then it's about taking those first steps.
Well, let's talk about that, though, because, again, the whole book is about stupid ideas, quote unquote. But the reality is, people get ideas all the time. They get hunches. They get, oh man, that would have been kind of cool. Or, well, what if I did? And it's not even about entrepreneurship. This isn't about go out there and start a business necessarily. It's like an idea. It's an idea on your job. It's an idea. It's a mission. It's something that comes to mind.
Yes.
And then they disregard that inspiration because, well, it's stupid, or it's risky, or it's this, it's that. Talk about how important it is to give credence to those ideas, because that's what I really want folks to walk away with. Everybody that has tuned into this series for some reason is because you want something better, different, more freedom, whatever, right? And there are ideas that have been percolating that you've not given credence to, and you have some strong convictions about the ideas.
Yeah, that's a good word, credence. So let's try and make this real. Like, you have an idea, it sounds exciting, you really want to do it, but you're scared of what your mom or your dad's going to think. I mean, we're talking even people that are
grown.
So then you label it stupid, and you put it, metaphorically, in a drawer, and you put it away, and you don't do anything about it. And then a year later, you see someone else doing it, and you go, dang, I had that idea.
Yep.
Okay. We didn't do it because we didn't like it or we didn't want to. We did it because we were scared. And what's interesting about fear is, as much as we talk about crushing it and getting over it, and we can talk more about that, really it's like a bigger fear that helps us get over a little like a mama bear protecting her cubs. She doesn't want to get hurt either, but she does it to protect her cubs, right? It's the same thing. Like, you're afraid to do this idea because of what your parents or someone else might think, but the moment you're more afraid of not doing it than you are of the fear of someone pointing the finger at you, you frickin' win. So I use that example because it's a real one that I actually hear, interestingly, a lot, whether it's a parent or somewhere else or a spouse, whatever. And the only answer is, it's not just go and do it. Like, if you really want to work through it, I mean, here's something like really practical someone can do. You go to that person, mom, dad, neighbor, friend, spouse, and you say, I have this thing, but I've been thinking about it for a long time, but I'm really scared to do it because I'm afraid of what you're going to think of me, or I do, that you're going to tell me that it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
And what are they going to do? Like, they automatically, ironically, not everyone, but in many cases, they'll come to your rescue and say, oh no, I would never, not me. I would never do that. And it's not a trick. It's just communication, And then you share it, and then they still might not like it, but at least now you can talk about it and you can move on with your life.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that name it, entertainment, confront it, like do it. And if that conversation is, is like really, really hard to have because of other things and toxic situations, whatever else, you literally have a choice. You either bury that idea and it goes away,
Mm-hmm.
or you do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like to ask myself, will I regret it?
Yep.
And what could this have turned into? Like, I actually recently did a kind of a poll and just asked people, are you more afraid of failing, or are you more afraid of regret?
Mm-hmm.
It was weird. It was almost like half and half.
Yep.
I'm more afraid of regret. That's why I go and do stuff.
Yep.
But some people are more afraid of failing. And so it's an interesting thing to work through. But once you understand what your fears are, then you can face them and you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
But usually your fears and your failures are kind of come and go or go away in the doing of them.
Yeah. It is. What I think is interesting is that there's this expectation that if I was supposed to do it, then I wouldn't be afraid of it. Like the fear wouldn't be here if this was really what. So because I'm so afraid, then that must be the signal that this is the stop sign, right? When in actuality, usually the fear is that's the evidence that that's the direction that you're supposed to go. Now, does that mean that you there's things you got to work through and you got to be prudent and whatnot? But usually that's the sign. And so I love when you talk about, will I regret it? But you put a caveat on it in the book and you say, will I regret it when I'm 80? Because I think that becomes really important when you start to have a much longer term view of life. Because if you ask, will I regret it in 2 weeks? Well, hell yeah, because I might, that might be my bonus check or whatever. So there might be some real regret in the immediate term if you ask the question. But when you start to think long term, when you start to add decades, to the conversation, and then you, especially because the folks that are listening here, y'all are already driven. There's already this drive to do great things. So I already know that that's part of your makeup if you're listening in on this series.
Yeah.
And so being able to ask that question, what if I didn't step up and do X, if I didn't go out there and really try to make a difference in Y, when I look back on 80, would I regret that?
No, it's true. And that was Jeff Bezos. He came up with that question, will I regret it when I'm 80? Right. He was a lot younger than he is today. Probably had a little more hair than he does now.
And for those of y'all who don't know, Jeff Bezos is founder of Amazon. So
founder of Amazon. And he's walking around Central Park with his boss, and he's supposedly it was like a 3-hour chat, and he's like, he's working on the stock market, and he's like, hey, I want to start this thing where I sell books online. And his boss is like, it's a good idea, but not for somebody who already has a job.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, will I? And then he asked himself, will I regret it when I'm 80? And he realized he would regret missing this opportunity in the future. And so he quit his job, packed up his bags, and moved to Washington and did his thing. And here he is. You know what I mean? So like at the end of the day, people always think like they can't or they can, but and it wouldn't be cool to time travel and see what would happen if I did or I didn't or whatever. But the thing is, you can in your mind. Mm-hmm. You can go to the future in your mind and go like, am I going to look back on this and wish I would have done something about this? Mm-hmm. Yes. Or no. Okay, great. Now you know. Yeah. But then also, if you pair that with, will this thing I'm going to do get me closer to my dreams or get me closer to having that lifestyle that I want? Well, that's like a North Star. Like, of course you're going to do it. Mm-hmm. It's going to move you further away from it. Well, then you have a choice to make. Yep. You either say no, or you decide that maybe your dreams have changed over time. You know what I mean? But at least you're conscious about it.
Yeah. And then when we think about the opportunity cost, right? So I think with what was interesting about the Jeff Bezos example, it was like, yeah, this would be a great idea if you had nothing to lose. That's kind of like what his boss was saying. But you've got, good salary, you got bonus, you've got all these things that you can kind of lose if you choose to take this pivot or make this decision. And so for a lot of us that are listening in, that becomes the weight. Like, oh, but this is going best on if I stayed for another 18 months or, whatever the case may be. And so when you think about the opportunity costs, sometimes you may want to consider, could I rebuild that?
Yep.
Like the idea, the thing that I want to do, that shit might sail.
That's right.
And when it sails, it might be gone. And would I regret not being a part of that? This other thing, this opportunity cost, whether it's my current role or, I'm a manager at X or whatnot, could I go and get another job? Could I come back? I mean, when I was in corporate, I can't tell you how many people would leave the company And then 2 years later, 3 years later, here they were coming back after they did whatever they had gone to do, another company or this or that, but good reputation, solid
Cool.
performers, they came back and they
That's cool.
contributed. And there was no shame in that.
Yep.
So when you think about the opportunity cost, can I replicate that opportunity cost? Because the stupid idea that you have, again, that window might be finite and that shit might fail.
Yeah, I agree. It's like you can always get another job, but you'll never get another life. You know what I mean?
It's kind of true. True.
No, I love it. And I also know we can get into like really specific stuff people can do right now, but I also know like people are going through things that are really hard.
Yeah.
And people will ask me, like, sometimes they'll even compare their pain to my wife and mine or whatever. And they're like, oh, but mine wasn't as hard as yours, or this isn't as bad. And I go, like, shut up. Like, it's all hard. Pain is like gas. Even like the tiniest bit fills the whole room. You stub your toe, it ruins your freaking day. You know what I mean? Like, it just fills your body. So it's not about comparing pain. That's not a thing. I mean, you can, but that shouldn't be helping you or hurting you. It's just recognizing that it is. But what I learned, like through going through grief, is that it's a tunnel, not a cave. Like it's not about moving on, because that stuff that's happened and is happening is part of you. Maybe it's you. You don't have to define yourself by it, but you can, and you can build on top of it. It's about moving forward with it. You know what I mean? Becoming better because of it. It's a tunnel, not a cave. And the only way a tunnel becomes a cave in this situation would be if you stop walking. You know what I mean? So that's the idea, is like, okay, I don't know where I'm going to go. What would I regret? Well, now you know where to go, you know? And then you're like, oh, but I have all this stuff. It's so hard. Cool. I get it. Recognize it. Do it anyways. You know?
Yeah. What I admire about you is that you have an incredible sense of urgency about life, and obviously that urgency is born out of some of the things that you have endured, and I'll let you kind of share where that connection comes from. But one of your mantras is life is too short to not start something stupid. And I think for a lot of us, we have ideas or we have hunches or we have inclinations, and we are really slow to act on them. And so there's momentum that gets lost, there's opportunities that miss, and all of that because of the time it takes to even make the decision to act. And sometimes it's not success or failure. Sometimes it's just picking up the phone or making the first step or making the call or writing the blog. It could be that simple.
That's it.
Tell me about your sense of urgency and how that plays into, because you've done lots of businesses and lots of things, and like if people knew all that you did, had your hand in, they'd be surprised. But it's driven by urgency. Tell us a little bit more about that and how you leverage it.
Yeah, that's nice to say. I do have a sense of urgency, but I also, like, I guess anyone, feel like everything takes maybe too long, you know, or maybe that is part of the sense of urgency, or I think about things for a really long time, or it takes, you know, a while. But for me, it's not about managing time. It's about like prioritizing your attention. So if you know where you're going to go, or you know what you're focused on, or you're present in the room, well, then let me say it this way. The people with the least amount of time are the people that are managing their time. Every single box is full, and they have no time for anything. And this is in general, of course. And they feel like they worked all day long and got nothing done. As opposed to prioritizing your attention, where you go all in on something, and it just gets done. You know what I mean? But what I'm trying to say is, it's okay if things maybe percolate, take some time to grow and do stuff. The challenge is people are waiting for the wrong reasons. Like there is something to say about timing.
Absolutely.
But most of the time, the waiting is the wrong thing to do. You know what I mean? But what I'm trying to say is, people wait for something that won't get them what they think it will when they have it.
Interesting.
They misalign this procrastination. So for example, we're all taught to think really big and have really big dreams.
Mhm.
We should 100%, like 10x, like do the thing,
Mhm.
make it massive. But when you think that big, the other side of that is, oh no, that's going to cost $1 million.
Yep.
I'm gonna need a building. I'm gonna need all these people to work for me. Blah blah blah. Then you stop and you do nothing. So that's not helpful.
Yep.
So the idea is, sure, think big, but just get one.
Mm.
So if you want to be a coach or a consultant or have an online course, sell it to one person.
Mhm.
Oh, I don't have a course. Can't you talk to somebody on the phone for whatever? You know what I mean?
Record
Like,
it.
you start with one, and then one becomes two, two becomes 10, 10 becomes 100, 100 becomes 1,000, 1,000 becomes 1,000,000, and it grows that way.
Yep.
I had a guy reach out to me cool dude, Southern California. He just inherited like $1 million from his uncle, okay, who had just passed away. And he called me up, he reached out, and I'm like, what do you want to do? He's like, I want to do something. I'm like, well, what do you want to do? It's a weird dream, but this is his dream. He wanted to sell spicy chocolate, Mexican chocolate, he called it. I'm like, cool. And he's like, yeah, but I'm gonna spend the whole $1 million on this building, and I'm gonna get staff. I'm like, no, stop.
Yeah.
And it was just with one thought. I said, before you go and spend all this money and do all this stuff, why don't you go talk to the buyers at stores and see what they want and if they want it. Oh, and by the way, just go and Google private label Mexican chocolate, and you'll probably find a bunch of places that are currently making it or have the capacity to make it for you. So for, about $5,000 more or less or whatever he spent, he was able to actually pre-sell and make this chocolate and get it into stores. It saved him, $995.
Right.
$1,000 was one thought. And so that's a weird thing, but for anyone listening to this, whether it's a physical product or it's a digital product or it's some kind of service out there, you don't have to be like doing the like multi-million-dollar idea out the gate.
Yeah.
No one does. Just one. Go get one. And then you'll learn if you even like it or not. You might not even like it,
I really love I love the point, because it's a great way, and you generally, from what I've learned about you, you have a great way of doing this. You chunk things down and you find the small win and you create the project, because then it becomes doable, right? So oftentimes, folks that might be listening on the call are thinking that, man, if I'm creating work I love, if I'm creating my perfect work, I got to be all in. I've got to completely just create all the upheaval in my life, and my spouse is going to be upset and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, maybe creating work you love just becomes a project that you've decided to take on parallel to the other things that you're doing. Internet marketers talk about it a lot. Everything's a test, and then it's like, you're trying to figure out, should I do this? Should I do that? Well, test it. See what happens.
That's right. No, it's really important. I love the idea of calling things a project, because then it makes it real, but also it gives it a beginning and an end. It actually gives you permission without losing face to fail, because projects can fail. It's just a project. You know what I mean? But you can still go all in and make it work. So let's just use a book, for example, because it's simple. If I say, yeah, I want to write a book, well then, like I always have, I want to write a book.
Yeah.
If I say I have a goal to write a book, then I always have the goal to write a book. But the moment I decide to write a book, the book is written because I decided. So it's moving from goals, which are great high level, to decisions and actually doing it. And if you call it a project, I have a book project, it helps you then make that decision to put dates around it, starting it, finishing it, timelines, milestones, and actually helps you have real conversations with real people or self-talk to actually get it done. And that's how you get those small wins.
Yeah.
I have I have a book idea. I have a book project.
Yeah.
I am an author.
Yeah.
I write.
Mm-hmm.
And now I tell you that, and now I feel like I have to be held accountable to it.
Yeah.
So I do it,
Mm-hmm.
and so on and so forth.
Yeah. But it also takes the pressure off. So,
Yeah,
for
that's
those
right.
of you who are listening, try it. Like if you want to create a weekend retreat for, folks with disabilities or kids with autism or whatnot, well, create a project around it.
That's right.
Create a project around it. And then your ego gets a lot more detached from, did it go well? Did it not go well?
I
You're
like
able
that.
to lean into the feedback, because the feedback we all need, right? To tweak, to do more of, to do less of, whatnot. But it becomes less about your identity and more about, got this project.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
just that
that's right.
reframe, I think, instantly takes a weight off your shoulders
No,
to be able to
that's right.
do step 1, 2, and 3.
And people that are at the top of their game have this same experience. People think that like I've talked to so many people and coached so many people that are just at the top of their game. They're scared of starting something new because they're scared of falling down, like
Yeah,
from this pedestal.
yeah,
And then people that are just starting, it's not about being better or worse. That's not it. It's just about where you are and where you're starting, right?
yeah,
People that are just starting, they're afraid they don't have all the resources of the people at the top and they can't do it. And then you go, but that person up at the top also didn't have the resources at the time.
mhm,
So it's returning to stupid, like a cycle
yeah,
over and over and over to stay relevant,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So when my brother-in-law passed away, my son passed away, I had a mentor. And you can imagine, like, this is your worst experience ever as a person and as a family member to have someone so close to you pass.
yeah,
And we all have, hard things, but like the world never felt heavier, even with these losses. You're
yeah,
just, what do you do? You're in massive grief. And I had a mentor. She said to my wife and I, she said, well, what did you learn? And I'm like, I don't know. And my wife's like, ask me in a year, like, what a hard question.
yeah,
And I thought about it. And my brother-in-law was named Gavin, and my son was named Gavin after him. And I call it Gavin's Law, which is live to start, start to live.
mhm,
Because when you live to start those ideas that are pressing on your mind,
yeah,
you really will start living.
mhm,
And then people say, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, you have ideas, but I don't know where to start. So I like to help people remember things by using acronyms. So I created an acronym for START, which
yeah,
is, this is how you start.
mhm,
This is the way almost any leader that rose to the top and helped a lot of people did it. You serve, this is START, serve, thank, ask, receive, and trust. So then you're like, well, where do I start? How do I make money? Like, maybe, yeah, you should ask for money. You should bill people. You should charge. And there's something to say about serving people for free
yeah,
and earning the right, to thank them for the opportunity, to earn the right to ask for assistance, to earn the
mhm,
right to receive without being like weird about it, and then trust the process.
mhm,
So whatever it is that you want to do, like building that, like, it's not about you scratch my back, I scratch yours.
yep,
That's transactional.
yep,
It's about being transformational.
mhm,
People who are in transformational relationships are givers, not takers.
yeah,
And so we look to give more than we get. And by doing so, it opens up anything you want to do,
yep,
because there's always someone out there who's probably done it before that can help you
yep,
if you get, out there.
yep.
There you go.
I think it's a really interesting point, and one to drill home, that whatever it is that you're trying to create, be willing to give it to the marketplace.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you're going to be, 5 years down the road just serving people for free. That's not the point. We're talking about starting something, right? And so for if you've got a talent, if you've got a skill, if there's something that you think, man, I think I want to do something with this, my art, my this or that. Figure out, where in the marketplace can I give this? Where can I, because if you give something that is of high quality and of high value, um, doors will open up for you.
Yeah.
Doors will totally open up for you as you do that. There's actually a scripture, I'm forgetting what it is, but it talks about bringing your gift before kings. Like, all of us, whatever the talent that we have, that's the gift. And when you bring that before people, man, opportunities will open up for you in a great way.
Love it.
And so I love the point about serving. We think about that in terms of like networking. Oh, I'm trying to connect with so and so. Let me see what I can give them, and then maybe I can network, behind the back. The concept, though, is being able to give away the gifts that you have, because in doing so, and it may not come from the person that you gave it to, it might come completely from left field, but
Yep.
it's putting that energy and putting that in motion so that whole cycle can come to fruition.
No, I love it. And let's bring up the other side that someone's listening to might be wondering, well, then what about money? How do I charge? When do I charge? How much do I charge?
Mm-hmm.
Charge higher than you think. Charge it all. Here's why. People will go out starting a new business and they'll charge nothing to no one and then wonder why they don't have any money.
Mm-hmm.
Or they'll work on a project for a year and say, Richie, why didn't I make any money? I go, when's the last time you asked someone for their credit card?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Working on activities that don't generate sales isn't actually working. That's like preparing to work. Like if you work to make money, you got to ask people for freaking money. You know what I mean? So where I'm going with this is when you want to start something, it's actually okay to start with a high number.
Mm-hmm.
That's branding. Pricing is branding.
Pricing is branding.
And it's
Absolutely.
and it's way easier to sell one thing to one person for $1,000 than 10 people at $100.
Yep.
So you see, that's what Tesla did. They went out and they said, we're a $100,000 car. People thought it was cool. And that it enabled them to be able to get the funds they needed to make a less expensive car. And once they had reach and brand, then to go wide. So what's cool about charging high is some people don't have the confidence for it. They don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
And you know, that's a thing. But just for a second, imagine if you were doing that, well, then it gives you more opportunity to give 99% of your stuff away for free.
That's right. That's right. Oh my gosh. We can end the conversation here. We should end it here.
You know?
We have these conversations all the time of women who, especially those who want to train or coach, or you want to do something transformational, you want to do good, you're a healer, this or that, and you just want to just serve people. Well, you can't serve them broke. You can't serve them if you don't have anything. You can't amplify, and you can't go bigger, and you can't do any of that, right? It's so powerful, but the reality is the rich, that's why we're talking about getting highly paid. That's why we're talking about getting highly paid, because the reality is when you are able to then sustain yourself, you have the bandwidth and the flexibility to go and do something pro bono, or go and make a difference in the way that you want, or go and give to those who don't have the means to
Absolutely.
be able to give back to you. You're in a position to offer that. But
Absolutely.
if you don't set yourself up to be able to do that, then nobody gets served.
That's right.
Right. And
That's right.
but pricing is perception. You know, people perceive that if something is more expensive, it is of higher value.
Yep.
And so that may mean that you elevate in your personal or your spiritual growth to be able to understand your worth at that value. And so that's something you might have to work through. But the reality is that the marketplace has a different perception for a higher price point.
That's correct. And you may be working with it, it's just as much work or even even less to work with people that respect you and respect your time. Like, let's be honest, like the worst clients I've had are the ones that like are trying to nickel and dime me, even if they have all the money in the world.
Yeah.
It's not even about how much you have. And so like, it's the mentality of people you work with. And like, well, how do you find these people? Look, ask people what they want and give it to them. And then you bundle up a package that is high value. And then what if they can't afford it? Well, that's not on you. That's on them. Okay, that's okay. But I still want to work with them. Cool. Figure out a price point that works for them, because now you have the flexibility to be able to make those changes. But don't necessarily, it's not the same package. You just change the scope. You take out your hard costs. You take out the time, and give them the parts that are necessary for that price that make it worth it to you and to them.
Yeah. I have a question for you.
That's it.
Because you've played on both sides of the entrepreneurial camp. You do products and all of that kind of stuff, and you also offer services, professional services, whether it's coaching, this or that. Or do you believe that there's a different makeup for the entrepreneur that is in the product space, in the widget space, in the mass producing of something, than someone who is offering services that's more their professional service, that their thought leadership or whatever that they're offering? Do you think the makeup is at all different? And it may not be. I'm just curious.
No one's asked me that
because I'm curious.
I've never heard that question. That's a great question. It's a terrible answer, but I don't know. I'll, I'll tell you this though. I believe entrepreneurship is learned. So you can learn. No one's born an entrepreneur. What is that crap? Like you grow up learning things, So I think it's learned. Some might have a higher risk tolerance to one thing or another, right? Someone might like something more than another. But I think anyone in a service, if they wanted to sell physical products, could, and anyone in physical products could sell services if they wanted to. And yes, some people definitely do lean more towards in their makeup, like physical products versus digital products. But at the end of the day, I also believe that might have been learned. You know what I mean? Like what they've seen, what they do. And if you go back and you look at some of the richest, most famous people, you'll realize that most of them, not all of them, but many of them didn't make their money in the thing you thought they made their money in. They got on a movie, they got a hit song, and then they have a product. So what I'm trying to say is you can have a bundle of things that you do. You don't have to be put in a box.
Yeah.
You can do services, you can do physical products, you can do movies, you can do music, you can do whatever you want. And that's the idea. You can do whatever you want. But for me, when I wrote The Power of Starting Something Stupid, people reached out to me for help to start their stupid idea. And I quickly learned I couldn't be the subject matter expert on their idea because I don't know what they're doing. They're making stuff up. But I could focus on their business model and their lifestyle because they would tell me, I want to start this idea to make all this money. And they would do it and they'd get busy. And I'd be like, cool, but why did you start this in the first place? Oh, so I could have more time with my family and travel the world. Okay, well, are you doing that? No, I'm busy. Oh, so let's start over. Now when I talk to people, I say, well, once you have your product, your service, once you're rich, once you're doing your thing, once it's happening, what does that equal? What are you doing? What's the outcome of that? And they'll say, oh, let's just use that example again. I'm going to travel and live with my family and do whatever I want anywhere in the world. Oh, why don't you do that right now and build a business around that to support it? Why are you tiptoeing up to your dream and just hanging out on the fringes and barely even putting your toes in the water? I mean, how often do things we work for in the future, our goals actually happen? Very, very few, very little. Life changes, things change. It's hard. So instead of tiptoeing up to the dream and then finally magically with work, of course, but it happens, why not just have it happen? It's like this. People, let's pretend someone wanted to live in a castle, but they start by building a moat.
Yep.
They never get out of the moat. That's work. Why not just start with the castle, build a moat if you want to, but you're living in it already. And then you create strategic or economic moats to protect your center. You can put the drawbridge down and come in and out whenever you want. So when I say do whatever you want, whenever you want, wherever you want, that's going to look different for everyone. When I say charge high, that's because that allows you more flexibility to be able to do that faster, better, and even cheaper on yourself with less time. You know what I mean? But when you then decide, I have an idea, will it help support what I really want to do?
Yeah.
If it does, you do it. If it doesn't, you don't.
Yeah.
Richie, what do I do? And I'll say, once you know who you want to be, then you'll know what to do.
I love it because I call it design with the end in mind. So if you know the end, then you know whether or not this opportunity or this decision is going to support the end. If it doesn't support the end, well then, that likely is not the right, because the decision in and of itself is not right or wrong. It's just, is it going to get you where you want to go or is it not? Right?
Yes.
So I like that. So in the interest of time, there's something that you talk about that that I want to make sure that we cover. And you alluded to it in the beginning, but I want to drill it home. You talk about the top 3 excuses that you hear from people as to why they don't pursue their stupid ideas. Your TEM gap or your TIM gap. I want you to kind of share that with us and unpack it a little bit.
So the TEM gap, TEM, time, people say they don't have enough time, education, experience, or money.
Yeah.
And the weird thing about that is that that doesn't go away. even like you fast forward to the future, you're a multimillionaire, you're still going to want more money. And you see people who are multimillionaires, maybe even billionaires, they still need more money. Like, and I've worked with venture capitalists and a lot of rich people and all people all over the world. Literally, I spend, until all this craziness happened more recently, I was in China like 6 times a year, like working with owners of factories and making really cool products for people all over the world. And what you realize is, and someone said this specifically to me, a venture capitalist, he said, money is easy, time is hard. So first, like, recognize how lucky you are in your life, right? For whatever it is that you have. You may feel like you have time and no money, or money and no time, or maybe you have both, or maybe you have neither, right? But at the end of the day, if you're going to design, like you said, with the end in mind, you might as well design it with like freedom of time in mind. Because the products and services that we create, instead of taking time, can be created intentionally to make more time for you. Now, that's thinking differently. Most of us think as an owner-operator, which means we have to do everything. That's okay. But you can also think as an owner-investor, where maybe you're operating it, or actually you're not operating it at all, but maybe there's a hybrid in there, and you're picking and choosing the things that you really like and want to do. And the other stuff, I'm not saying you have to have a full staff of employees. Hello, this is 2020. We work with freelancers. We work from our computers. We work with people from all over the world. Like, there's nothing that we don't have accessible at our fingertips now. It's just about being creative. So if you're worried about not having enough time, education, experience, or more money, I just say that's no excuse, because no one does. Sure, someone might have a leg up or feel like they do, but there's something to say about bootstrapping, and there's something to say about grinding, and there's something to say about doing whatever you're, to make it work. But I would just say, don't lose sight of what's most important, like your family and whatnot, and build it around that to support it as opposed to taking away from it.
Yeah. I think that is such a powerful conversation to have for people who are at the cusp of especially those who are at the cusp of stepping into entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Because, I'm guilty of it. It was my experience. CEO was chief everything officer, like
yes.
the web person, the billing person, the assistant, then the deliverer, the content, like the whole nine. And that is because going into the business, I did not build the business around how I wanted to live my life. The business was the actual end game.
Yes.
And so there were so many sacrifices that were made in order to be able to do that. Whereas when you're starting from the beginning, if you're thinking about it really smart, just the way that you described it, Richie, you could probably succeed a lot faster, or at least a lot easier, because you're not, pulled at every end of the, thing, but you begin to outsource the stuff that's not your sweet spot, so that you can be the rainmaker. You can do the things that really are going to move the dial and move the needle and give you the freedom. And so having that mindset when you design the business is really, really critical, because you can get into something that's your perfect work and it feels like a hell of your own making. And so I think that's such a great point. Great point. You talk a little bit about the experience and the education gap, and then the money. So let's kind of nail those real quick, and then we'll probably be able to wrap it from there.
So, like, with time, you have more than you think, and if you don't have enough, you have time enough. You know what I mean? And then with education and then with experience, I learned this from a mentor of mine too, but it's not always how. A lot of times it's who, not how. Like, how much faster am I able to learn from someone or to get something done with a who, someone who's already been there, done that, than just trying to figure out how. I mean, like a lot of these guys going to outer space and doing these things, they don't know how to launch a rocket into outer space. They may have read it in a book, but they hire a bunch of people from NASA and wherever else to do it. See what I'm saying? Like
Shoot me in space.
it's, and then you get down to like, I don't know how to create a funnel or a website or this. Like, you could learn, and then or you could hire someone, but I don't have money. Well, then you can do a trade.
Yeah.
Or better, maybe if you're creating it for someone else, maybe the client pays you first and you explain how long it will take to deliver the product, and you then use that money to work with others. That's how business works.
Yeah.
One time, so I was working with Stephen M.R. Covey. I wasn't at the time. He gave me, the Coveys are mentors, and 7 Habits, if you're familiar with that. And Stephen M.R. Covey wrote a book called Speed of Trust.
Yeah.
And he heard me speak somewhere, called me into his office, and I went in there, and he's like telling me to like teach and speak and train old people. And I'm like, I was in my mid 20s. He's like, do all this stuff. And I'm like, what? I said, what about the gray hairs? That's what I said. And now I'm starting to get a little gray hair over here.
Yeah.
And he kind of banged on the table and he said, Richie, people say they have 20 years experience when in reality they only have 1 year's experience repeated 20 times. And I was like, what? You're telling me? And he's like, experience, it's not that it isn't important, it's that this continuous learning is important. Mm-hmm. Right? But sometimes we're like, well, I'm starting, they're way ahead of me. It's like, maybe not, And then again, with money, like the thought that you have to have money is a thought, but that's just standard. Mm-hmm. What if you ask yourself, how can I do this thing without money right now? And I'm not saying that means you'll know exactly what to do, but I'm saying that your mind wants to close the gap in your brain, so it will work to figure out that gap. That's it. Yeah. Ask better questions, get better answers.
Yeah.
So you decide what you want to do, what you don't want to do. You can eliminate, delegate, outsource the stuff you don't want to do. You only do the things you like to do that you're good at, while you're doing your best to have someone else or outsource or use software to do the rest. And that allows you to have the freedom of time to be able to grow the business, be with your family, and do whatever you want.
Yeah. I love the point, because at every stage of evolution, no matter where people are, they're having those same conversations around their business. So as you were talking, I got my highlighter. I'm like, yes, you've got to nail this outsourcing. You've got to nail this outsourcing, because there are things in my operation that I'm like, I got to get this off my plate. This is a time, I got to get this. I still have to serve. So it still has to be a part of the delivery, but I don't have to be the one that delivers. And it's been the idea that's been in the head for a year now. Like, I'm like, you gotta fix this, right? And so this whole time, experience, money thing, it doesn't matter where you are at whatever stage. These are the same questions that Richie's asking himself. What do I need to adjust so that I have more time with Natalie, or I have more time with the boys, or whatever it is that's of value to you, right?
Yes.
And so the stuff it's real. Like, so if
I like you. You're awesome.
But the idea of paying for speed, like you can learn how to do, like, there's so much stuff I know how to do with a website that is not even funny, that I wish I didn't know how to do, but I know how to do. But I've grown to be, you pay for speed. You go and you just get it done so that you can move and go have the contribution that you're meant to make. Quit playing around. And so this is some real talk. If you are stepping into entrepreneurship, that will save you just headache, in terms of just time on unnecessary. I just don't believe in unnecessary suffering.
Yes.
Not enough suffering.
I like that. I like that. So, and people are always afraid they're going to lose creative control. Like, I work with a lot of YouTubers that make all kinds of videos, and I have a company that has all these videos made overseas, like overnight. And they're always worried they're going to lose creative control. But you design it to say, well, you can look at it first and then get feedback. Like, you still have the say of what goes out into the world or not.
Yep.
So you don't have to release it if it's subpar. And so you start with one person to do one task. You see if it works, you gain trust, and you do it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. And just, so I want to drive home this idea of stupid ideas. I was having
Okay.
a conversation with a colleague of mine, just kind of we're acquaintances, and we run in similar kind of business circles. And we were just connecting the other day, and she's like, "Well, what are you doing? What you're up to?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm in the throes of doing this interview series." And I said, I'm super excited. We've nailed all of the women professional organizations that we wanted to be a part of this series, and thought leaders and whatnot. And she said, I remember you were talking about doing that. And the reason why it was important is because my idea was I wanted to marry these large organizations that really served women, with thought leaders like Richie and others, and really bridge the gap between the two of them, so that as you're listening, you're also starting to figure out what tribes can you begin to subscribe to,
Totally.
connect to, that will help to catapult your success, in addition to listening to thought leaders and folks who are doing the thing to be able to apply stuff. And it was that marriage that was the idea. And so she was like, I remember you said that you wanted to do that. And from the time I said it to the time it was done, maybe about 6 weeks, 8 weeks, maybe. But the reality is that it happened quickly. Whereas if you rewind a few years back, that idea might have been percolating for like 24 months. Like, I think I'm
Yes.
going to do blah, blah, blah. And
Totally.
so the faster you make decisions, doesn't mean that you hurry, but the faster you make decisions and you take actions, the less time it takes to complete the project. Because this is just a
Yes.
project,
That's right. That's right.
but all that he's talking about will allow you to start putting things under your belt to get closer and closer and closer to what that perfect work is supposed to be for you.
I
Even
love
if
that.
you don't know what it is, like some of you are real clear and some of you aren't clear. And part of the clarity comes in the doing of the thing,
Yeah,
as
so
opposed to the
true.
thinking of the thing.
That's so true. I love that. There's little things you can do too. Like go on Facebook or Instagram and do a little post and say, are you more interested in this or that?
Mm-hmm.
If you'd be interested in, hey, I'm doing XYZ, if that's something you'd be interested in, if you're worried about not getting comments, send me a quick DM.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you DM'd me. Hey, Sarah, what's your next big project? Oh, cool. Want to jump on a free strategy call and see like how we might be able to work together more professionally? Oh, cool. Well, how much do you charge? Oh, well, it's like, it's really expensive, but it's going to be, $2,000 a month for 3 months. But for you, I'll do it for $1,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking about? What does that look like? Well, you just told me you wanted to do blah, blah, blah. So we're going to do blah, blah, blah. Plus we're going to do this, this, this. Like that's coaching. That's consulting. That's how it's done today. That costs nothing. That's free. That wasn't an ad. That was within your own network.
Yeah.
You can do a survey and ask people to fill it out and tell you what they're interested, what they like, what they want, if they're willing to spend money on stuff. Now you have a list of people that told you exactly what they want, when, where, why, and how much.
Yeah.
So we don't have to just work in the dark and then all of a sudden come out of the dark room and be like, yo, I got this thing. It's cool. No, you can bring it to light and bring people along the journey with you and make money by just asking better questions and working with the people that are interested.
Yeah.
There's no selling when you're talking to people that already want it. They just want it.
Absolutely.
Just give it to them.
Yeah, this has been so rich. We could go on forever.
Let's keep
But
going. Let's go. Let's go.
so
No.
so I know that I don't know if you actually decided, because I know that every speaker was going to offer a free gift to the audience. Did you decide what you wanted to offer, or shall we just put something below and whatever is on that page when we go live?
No, nothing free. No, I'm just joking. Go to richienorton.com/76-day challenge. So 76-day challenge. My son lived for 76 days. So I do projects around that time, which is just about 3 months,
Yep.
just a little under 3 months. And I learned that I can get anything done in that time and build towards other things too.
Yep.
So if you go to richienorton.com/76-day challenge, you'll see this. I kind of like, it's almost like a journal, just a PDF that takes you by the hand day by day, giving you ideas of things to do to take this idea or create this idea, and then actually make it happen with different prompts and ideas to kind of keep you going.
Yeah. And if you have not gotten a copy of Richie's book, The Power of Starting Something Stupid, How to Crush Your Dreams, Make Something Happen, and Live No Regret. It's been printed in 10 languages. So the man is bad. Get a copy of the book, read it, apply it. It's been my honor to have you. I'm so grateful that you took the time. I know lots of people have been impacted by what you said, and it was just fun. So I
This is
really
really fun. You're amazing. I love you. Thank you
fun.
so much. This is so cool. That was a
No,
great
this is good.
interview.
See, you didn't know. You didn't know. But I'm glad. I was like, well, we're gonna have a good time.
That
Richie
was
can fun.
great.
And for those who don't know, we did the interview series before a few months back. I actually reached out to Richie, but we couldn't get the schedules aligned and whatnot. I think he was in London or someplace, living a really cool life. But I'm glad that we were able to make it happen this time. It's been a real privilege, and I'm grateful that you shared all that.
Yeah, same. And if you guys are ever out in Hawaii, come say hi,
I will do. Oh, it's Oahu, right? Is it
Oahu.
Oahu?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
absolutely. But that being said, from Richie and from me, we want to wish you guys well. Have an amazing day, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys. Appreciate it.